Thank you for joining us on today's Everyday Board Game Podcast with Daniel.
And Daniel.
And today we are going to do another one of our top 8 debate sessions here. And we have chosen the theme Top 8 Press Your Luck Games, or Push Your Luck. However you want to say it, it's essentially the same thing. The idea behind a Press Your Luck game is fairly simple. A lot of times you will have a choice of continuing for a bigger reward but higher risk, or you could choose to stop and take the reward that you have. Think blackjack is probably the most common press your luck game that I can think of. That most people, either that or Yahtzee, would have a similar idea to it. And Yahtzee is less so, in my opinion, just because
Yeah.
the press your luck is really where do I put the score, not
Yeah, exactly.
really the dice roll. So, which we'll be talking more about Yahtzee here in a minute, I'm sure, because of some of our brackets. As always, with our top 8 debate, Daniel, do you want to explain how we pick our 8?
So the way we do the top 8 debate, we go to boardgamegeek.com and find a mechanism or whatever the topic is going to be, but it has to be a topic on BGG. And the way we do it is we pick the top 8 games that we have both played to be able to have a lively debate about it. Another caveat is if a game is similar, like a second edition or a reprint, it's eliminated just because we want to talk about different games. In this case in point, and it was mentioned in our poll, King of New York was one that was added to the poll where they wanted to talk about, whereas we have King of Tokyo actually in the bracket. There is a slight tweak and difference in King of New York versus King of Tokyo. However, even if, and I don't think it was in the top 8 to make it into the bracket, we decided to, if it was, it would have been eliminated anyways, just because it's a similar style game to King of Tokyo.
Right. Yeah, it's similar enough where we didn't feel comfortable. So, just think that whenever we talk about King of Tokyo, we're talking about King of New York also.
Yeah.
Because they're both solid. There is quite a bit of differences in King of New York, but not enough to like it's the same reason like we don't include like Game of Thrones second edition versus Game of Thrones first edition. Like sure there's a lot of changes, but like it's kind of the same game.
You're
Or
still getting the same.
yeah, or like if we were picking something like Honshu versus Hokkaido, like those are similar games. They're technically
Well,
different, but they're similar enough.
a big one is like the pandemic reprint. So when we're
Oh yeah.
comparing pandemic to say Iberia, there's slight tweaks, but you're still playing a pandemic game.
Yeah, exactly. Like all of the different, unless it's a big change of pandemic,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
rapid response is one of them, or the cure. We would include those different than regular pandemic, but pandemic Iberia not really that different.
Also, a few things we want to note that we have changed slightly to our top 8 debate. For one thing, we did fix the replayability issue. There is a new criteria, ease of play. Replayability has been pushed into the ease of play top or out of the 5 brackets, just to make it simpler and have less of an argument. And most of that argument is basically how the average gamer would look at things, except for when it comes to like getting people to play the game, like the initial playthrough.
Right.
What would be easier for, say, Danny over here to get people who are not regulars at game night to come in and play
Right.
games?
Yeah.
So just for ease of play, how is it to get people who are outside of gaming really?
Right.
Another thing we're going to start doing is after the first round, we're going to reseed everything. So the 7 seed, if it moves on and the 1 seed moves on, they're going to be facing each other in the quarterfinals, just to make it easier for us for the seeding purposes to have the top game versus the lower game, as it would be in, say, any sports playoff.
Yep, exactly. And then so we're gonna talk real quick about the 3 categories that we kind of broke down ease of play into is familiarity or simplicity of the mechanisms. So like if we say, oh, this game is basically Yahtzee with a slight tweak, well then people are familiar with Yahtzee. We feel that that's
Exactly.
comfortable.
Or
Or
if we're
and then
discussing like roll and write games, or not roll and write, roll and move games, a la Merlin.
yeah,
Monopoly is the biggest roll and move game.
right,
Everybody's familiar with that. You roll some dice, you move some tokens. That's the familiarity we're
exactly.
talking about and the simplicity of it.
Yep. And then also, of course, even if they're both like not not a common mechanism, because press your luck isn't the most common. I mean, blackjack I feel is fairly
Hmm.
understood for a lot of gamers, but it anything else that they include on top of it, if they have 5 different sets of rules and press your luck is just like a portion of it, well
Yeah.
then that's gonna be less simple than a game that is just press your luck. So we're gonna take that into clarifying, and that also kind of goes into change during gameplay or variability. Like, how often does the game actually physically change in like setting or mechanisms or whatever the thing is? Like, am I gonna do 40 different things on my turn? Like, do I have to have like a reference chart that goes into ease of play? And also, and this is more of a subjective thing, is what is the likelihood of getting it to a table to a non-gamer? Um, which I'm going to use my background of teaching games at game night, and I'm going to kind of assess like if I had a brand new group of players, not myself, but a brand new group of players coming in, are they more likely to play A or B? Or which one would I most likely bring out for them and feel that they would be more comfortable getting into the simplicity of it?
And
So,
on my side, when it comes to that as well, to me, a big part of this is the rule book. And so, which is the easier rule book for people to learn out of?
sure.
I gave Danny, when we were talking about it last week, the difference between, say, Lord of the Rings, Journey to Middle Earth versus Horrified's rule book. The non-gamer people who are looking into becoming a gamer, they're going to look at the Lord of the Rings rule book and go, nope. They're gonna look at the Horrified rule book and like, okay, this is not so bad. And it's that kind of thing that we're talking about when
Sure.
it comes to ease of play.
Yeah.
Would it be easy for someone new to gaming to pick up the game?
Right. And since we don't have theme as a choice in this press your luck game, because a lot of press your luck games really don't have much theme,
No.
um, we could also probably include that in initial likelihood, and that's also subjective. Like, who would rather play a horror game versus Lord of the Rings? Well, probably 50-50, but Horrified has a simpler rule book, so likelihood of getting it to the table, yeah.
And as
Um,
for ease of play, we've already beat that horse down.
yep.
There's 4 other things that we have as criteria to help us move these games along, and those are meaningful choices. As always, are you
Hmm.
making meaningful choices to drive the game or push your luck in this case?
Uh-huh.
How does the game feel? The next one is mechanisms. How does the game fit into that mechanism? Do you get that push your luck? Or is it just a small part of the game?
Right.
The tension, and this is an important one, especially for press your luck or push your luck games.
Yep.
How tense does it make you feel as you're playing the game? Do I want to keep pushing my luck, or am I going to bust? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
And as always, art and production. Which is the prettier game? Which has the better production values? Which is going to last longer? I guess you can say after repeated plays.
Sure. All right. So I think that's a pretty definitive clarifying of what we were trying to do, because we noticed that a lot of our arguments just stemmed from that lack of clarity. So I'm glad that we were able to clarify that for this top 8 debate. And now we'll just have to see what new arguments we have, because I'm sure this hasn't alleviated it, but we're still gonna try and be fairly objective. And I think you and I also agree that we're going to try and take out I mean, we have to put in our personal preference, of course, but
Oh
we're going
yeah.
to try and remove ourselves from the situation, which ones we think is
At
just
least when it comes
better.
down to the breakdown.
Yeah, exactly. So, with that being said, today let's list off the different brackets that we're going to go over, and then we'll go into our honorable mentions. There was no comments in Facebook this time around, so we're just going to jump pretty much straight into it. First, we have our number 1 seed versus our number 8 seed, Clank versus Mystic Vale.
Our number 3 seed versus 6 seed, Raw versus Abyss.
Our number 2 seed versus our number 7 seed, Quacks of Quedlinburg versus the Grizzled.
And our 4 seed, King of Tokyo, facing off against the 5 seed, Pandemic the Cure.
All right. Cool. And then
It's when we were talking about like if it was different than normal Pandemic, that goes into the bracket
Right.
here, and that's because Pandemic the Cure is a push your luck game.
Yep, it's a very, very
rated
different
too.
game. Huh?
Highly rated too on the BGG.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, It's up there with the regular Pandemic. I like them both, but this is definitely if you like tactics, Pandemic the Cure is the one to go. If you like long term strategy, Pandemic Base is the way to go.
Yep.
Either way, it's really they're both solid. Um,
Before we go into our honorable mentions, forgot to mention this when we were doing the breakdown. As always, the poll, the fan vote, is the tiebreaker.
yep.
So whoever's highest on that moves on.
Yeah, now I haven't seen the fan votes yet, so I am excited to see, and I'm sure we're going to break them down at the end of it, or probably during it as well. So I'm very curious to see how this works out. With that being said, let's jump into our honorable mentions. I have two today.
As do I.
Cool. All right. Do you want to go first?
Sure. So my first game, it was on the Push Your Luck and didn't make the top 10 or the top 8 here. It would have, but we eliminated it because we didn't think the Push Your Luck was the main driving force of the mechanism, and that's Evolution.
Yeah.
Evolution is one of my favorite games. It's a nice card game. There is Push Your Luck element when you're trying to decide, okay, when do I turn into a carnivore? Because I can only eat other creatures, including some of my own, or do I just stay and become a fatty and put as much food as I can in the thing, but I have to watch what other people are doing, see if they're putting food into it. And that's another Push Your Luck aspect. Do I want to keep making my creature fat to try to get more food to see if people are putting food? So, because if I play a 10 card and someone only plays a -2 card, yeah, it's going to affect me trying to get my creatures fed. So, to me, it's a fun game. I really enjoy it. I do want to try the expansion Climate because it adds another element of that Push Your Luck. Whereas, do I make myself fat this way I can live in the colder environments, or do I make myself smaller this way I can deal with the heat? And so you can push a little tug of war battle when it comes to the climate as well. So, to me, that seems like a very interesting twist on Evolution itself.
Yeah, definitely. My first honorable mention is a small card game. I was originally going to put Push by Prospero Hall, but that's going to get enough love coming up next Monday when we break down Prospero Hall. But really, my one of my favorite Push Your Luck card games, hands down, is Dead Man's Draw. Dead Man's Draw is a simple card game by Mayday Games. There are 10 different suits of cards, and they have values between 2 to 7, I believe. 2 to 6 or 2 to 7. I believe 7. Every turn, you flip over a card. If it has matched a suit that has been dealt out before, you bust. Otherwise, you can keep going. Since there are 10 different suits of cards, it is awesome because you only score the highest one, and if you bank it, every card that you get has its own ability that, as you play it, comes into play. So, for example, if I play a cannon, I get to blow up the top card of one of my opponent's stacks. If I draw a mermaid, generally they're just higher points. If I draw an anchor, everything before it is safe if I do bust. So it has all these little things. It takes a couple minutes to get the hang of getting the suits ready or understood. But once you have it down, oh my god, it plays so well, and we've played the mess out of it. So that's my first honorable mention. It was not on the list, but it's one of my favorite card game, Push Your Luck.
Nice. And my next game on my honorable mentions list here is Celestia. You can actually kind of see it right there on my shelf. And to me, it's funny. I had never heard of this game, never played it. Actually won it in an auction at, I guess, Tabletop Day, I think is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And played it. You showed it to me, actually. You're like, hey, let me show you this game since you won it. And to this day, it's still one of my favorite Push Your Luck games. And when we're going to talk about ease of play and a game that you can bring out against non-gamers and stuff like that, that will get them interested. Yeah. This game hits that sweet spot like there is no tomorrow, because everybody I've showed it to really dig this game. And it's a quick game. It can be a little long depending on how far you push your luck. But people always say, ooh, that's it? All right, let's play again. And it's basically you decide if you're going to keep moving and if you have the cards to mitigate the dice, or you jump ship and try to win some money or win some points based on where you're at that time.
Yeah.
The further along you go and staying in the ship with whoever the pilot is, the better chance you get at better points. And so everybody I've played this with, it's gone gangbusters. Everybody really enjoyed it. So I think Celestia is probably one of my favorite push your luck games.
Yeah. I mean, it's right up there with like Diamant and Ink and Gold. You know, it's that group push your luck where everybody's in the same thing and you decide one by one whether you want to leave. It's awesome. That's
Yeah.
a great pick. And my second honorable mention, I wanted to pick a dice game. That was a push your luck game, and although Dungeon Roll is one of my favorites, my honorable mention is going to be Can't Stop by Sid Saxon. Just the best pure push your luck game ever. It's roll 4 dice, pick 2 pairs, move some pieces. First one to get to the top of 3 rows wins first. And then I've heard of people trying to win in the first turn, or they try and do a